Hi, everyone. Carter Krishnaiyer for Beyond the 90. Based on social media, and I don't spend a whole lot of time anymore on social media, but based on social media in the last 24 hours, once again, I think there's a whole group of people who think all the U.S. Soccer Federation does is run the men's national team. They forget about the women's national team and they forget about everything else that the Federation is involved in. And I've been a longtime critic of the U.S. Soccer Federation, but I've seen developments in the last 2 to 3 years that have given me more confidence that the Federation has turned a page and is now facilitating a different style of governance of the sport in this country. So, ironically, this was a U.S. Open Cup week, which is the competition that the Federation runs. That is our national championship. And the U.S. Open Cup, thanks to the sponsorship efforts, the marketing efforts of U.S. Soccer the last few years, their willingness and ability to go out and get really kind of blue chip sponsorships for this competition, which hadn't happened before, there's now more prize money associated with winning Open Cup than there is with winning MLS Cup. And it's a huge boon for smaller clubs and for smaller communities around the country. And that's something U.S. Soccer is doing. Under JT Batson, the current executive director, who's been in the job now for a few years, there's been more of an emphasis on grassroots efforts, grassroots soccer, grants going to entities in local communities, the growth of the game on a very localized, community-based level. That's how you build a successful men's and women's national team, by the way. You build that infrastructure, which has never been properly built in this country, partly due to our pay-to-play youth system, largely due to the fragmentation in the youth system, which you could argue is the fault of U.S. Soccer, past leadership at U.S. Soccer. But I think it's really important that those fans who and look, we see the numbers of who watches what and who engages in what, whether it's first via television ratings numbers, streaming numbers, clicks, engagements. We see that the two big drivers of soccer fandom in this country are the Premier League, which is a separate competition in a separate country. And there are a lot of people who sit and watch Premier League games on Saturday mornings and don't even know that there's a high-level professional or semi-professional club maybe playing on the same street as they live on. There's just a lot of those people. And everybody has to make their own individual choices, own individual decisions. But I don't like those people then turning around and criticizing American soccer and saying, well, American soccer is not very good, and you're not making even an effort to help the team in your local area, or the youth club in your local area, or the soccer academy or soccer camp in your local area. And then there are people who watch the men's and women's national teams. Those are the two big buckets. Liga MX has begun to fade, although that's still a pretty big bucket. And then there are people who watch MLS, USL. Actually, based on our recent numbers, NWSL numbers are surging, and those are probably also women's national team fans. But I think it's important when we reflect on this week, and I understand the United States lost in the CONCACAF Nations League on the men's side to Panama with players who were developed through our youth system or through the youth system of the countries they grew up in, because there's some of those in our player pool still, 10 or 15 years ago. In the case of Tim Ream, 20 years ago in St. Louis. So understand what's going on now on the grassroots level and what's going on in terms of USL implementing promotion and relegation and growing the game with lots and lots of professional clubs and semi-professional clubs entering League One and League Two, what the League for Clubs is doing, what we talk about with NPSL and UPSL through the years. All of this develops players, develops infrastructure, develops football culture, soccer culture that we didn't have when the current players on the men's national team and many of the players on the women's national team, and the women's national team is beginning to skew younger since Emma Hayes took over, were being developed. These are processes. These take time. U.S. soccer has been poorly run and run, in my opinion, by the previous regime or a previous regime at U.S. Soccer with the single agenda of protecting Major League Soccer's monopoly over the professional game. and by creating a women's league where they could put two agendas: protecting Major League Soccer's monopoly and creating a women's league, which would be their women's league where they could house all their national team women's players. That was it. That was all they cared about. They let the game wither away at the grassroots level. There was mismanagement. There was, I would say, alleged collusion in terms of preventing competition in the marketplace, preventing the game to really grow at the grassroots level, the bottom-up method. Now I think the attitude has changed, as evidenced by USL's announcement this past week, as evidenced by the support and the outpouring of support for promotion and relegation and for different systems in the sport in this country and a different structure. So I just want to stress, US Open Cup. This week, we have more sponsorship money, more prize money involved in that competition than ever before. And arguably now, actually, if you look just straight at the Open Cup winner versus MLS Cup, yes, there's more money in Open Cup. But the critiques of in the past that, oh, it's a useless competition with nothing behind it, those are gone, right? You have really high-end blue-chip sponsors that have flocked to Open Cup in the last 18 months. Understanding its unique position as a domestic cup, U.S. Soccer leveraging their position in the marketplace to make that cup competition more relevant than ever. And I think from my perspective, it's always been very relevant. Now it's more relevant than ever. The grassroots efforts at localized levels that are happening, the grant money coming to local communities, the fact that USL feels they now have a partner in US Soccer where they can move forward with promotion and relegation. They can move forward with a proper pyramid within their league structure. The fact that US Soccer has allowed a second women's A-League or second women's D1 league, which gives more competition and more places for women's players to develop, more professional places without having to move abroad or give up the game after you're done in college or done at academy, which has happened with a lot of promising women's players. As great as our women's national team has been through the years, we've had a lot of girls fall through the cracks that could have been influential players. And then, as I said, I think all of these are building the base for a more successful and sustainable women's and men's national team 10 or 15 years down the road. I know people are impatient. I know they want results now. I know they want to fire Pochettino, or I heard criticisms of Emma Hayes after the U.S. lost to Japan and She Believes a few weeks ago. I mean, all of that is great fodder for social media. It's noise. That's all it is. And there's a lot of other things going on, a lot of positive things going on in the game in this country.